Their length must have been hundreds of meters. They had made regular grooves on the ground and were lying around in great numbers. Brazel picked up a few pieces intended to show the neighbors and give them to Sheriff George Vipcox. The sheriff contacted the airbase in Russell. When the military arrived at the scene, the military pushed all the police out, surrounded the area in a dense circle and took away everything found there. They flew the pieces back to Rossville, then used B-29s and S-54s to deliver them to a location in Ohio. At the base at Russville at the time was the 509th Bomber Regiment, equipped with atomic bombs for the first time. On the morning of July 8, 1947, Regiment Commander Colonel William Blank had ordered the press to report that the parts of the broken saucer had been discovered. That very day, more than 30 American afternoon newspapers published this announcement in the shocking news section. Their length must have been hundreds of meters. They had made regular grooves on the ground and were lying around in great numbers. Brazel picked up a few pieces intended to show the neighbors and give them to Sheriff George Vipcox. The sheriff contacted the airbase in Russell. When the military arrived at the scene, the military pushed all the police out, surrounded the area in a dense circle and took away everything found there. They flew the pieces back to Rossville, then used B-29s and S-54s to deliver them to a location in Ohio. At the base at Russville at the time was the 509th Bomber Regiment, equipped with atomic bombs for the first time. On the morning of July 8, 1947, Regiment Commander Colonel William Blank had ordered the press to report that the parts of the broken saucer had been discovered. That very day, more than 30 American afternoon newspapers published this announcement in the shocking news section. The entire later career path of William Blank had confirmed the accuracy of his conclusions. He later rose to the rank of 4-star General and Deputy Chief of Staff of the U.S. Air Force. The first witness who participated in the research was the counterintelligence lieutenant colonel of the 509th Bomber Regiment in Russville, Joe Marcel. He was a skilled and highly respected specialist and was one of the first 2 officers present at the scene of the accident. In an interview in 1979, Marcel firmly stated, "It's not a hot air balloon." Regarding the material found, he remarked, "It doesn't catch fire, the substance is not nearly as heavy and it is not much thicker than the metal foil wrapped in cigarettes. When I tried to bend it, it didn't bend. At that time we used an 8 kg hammer to punch a hole in it with no success. The material was not affected." It is hard to imagine a person as trained and qualified as Joe Marcel, plus the counterintelligence officer of the only air regiment in the world at the time, to have an atomic bomb on his site. Otherwise you may mistake a meteorological balloon for a flying saucer. And not just on the radar screen, but then on the ground. His conclusion led to only one thing: these shell remnants are of non-Earth origin. The expertise of this witness could not be doubted, because later, along with the performance of a series of important state duties, he participated in the preparation of the secret report on the first atomic explosion in the Soviet Union. SHOV. This report was directly on the desk of U.S. President Truman. It was only in 1992 that the real cause of the second announcement in the military press, the annulment of the first, was revealed. Before his death, General Thomas DuBose confessed that in 1947 at the airbase of the 8th Brigade in Texas he personally received orders by telephone from General Clemens McMillan from Washington about the need to conceal the fact. Flying saucer. In the directive to General Romey, it was suggested to devise reasons to cover up this matter to get the press to leave us. In 1990, even General Archer E. Exon in 1947 he was only a lieutenant and had participated in the testing of broken flying saucer material at the Ohio State Laboratory, also began to speak. According to him, every possible test has been carried out: chemical analyses, severing, bending, compressing, pressing. All those who participated in these tests unanimously concluded that this material came to Earth from space. Glenn Dennis was a corpse handler who still lives in the suburbs of Rossville. As a respected businessman and engaged in social work, he has his own opinion and is not inclined to fabrications. Previously, as a young man, Glenn worked at the morgue and disposed of corpses. This facility already has a contract with the U.S. Air Force to assist with the disposal of corpses. Even before he learned about the secrets of the broken flying saucer, from the Air Force unit, the officers specializing in burial matters called him and asked to preserve the dead bodies in certain conditions. What is the best outdoor atmospheric conditions for the past few days? That afternoon Glenn went to the unit's military hospital for something. By the side door from the opposite side of the building he saw two military personnel of the laboratory. They were carrying certain foreign objects with strange symbols on their surfaces. As soon as he entered the military hospital, he immediately met a nurse he knew. He was about to talk to her for a while, but at that moment he was discovered by the military police and kicked out of the building. Allen died in New Mexico. 3 unidentified flying object research organizations MUFON, UFOs and FUFO have announced a call to join the international initiative, which calls for the governments of the world's leading countries, first of all the US, to open up secret data about aliens, so that humanity finally know that we are not alone in the universe. Broken flying saucer. The document was published in the press called the Roswell Declaration, because it was in the very small place Roswell nearly half a century ago that there was a cosmic catastrophe. At that time, in the desert of the American Southwest, there was a clash which could significantly affect the fate of mankind. This was announced by the military, but then they denied it themselves. In early July 1947, a farmer named Mac Brazel, who lived in New Mexico, went out in the early morning to check on his sheep after a night thunderstorm. He discovered unusual fragments. Not only Glenn Dennis, but others were also threatened with corporal punishment. According to family members of the police chief Vitkux, on these events Vitkux warned his wife that he and the whole family would die if he tried to tell what he saw at any time. When the military held Mac Brazel for a week and only released him after he swore to secrecy. He did not tell his family about the broken flying saucer again in his life. The military took from him everything he had picked up at the accident site and wanted to show it to the neighbors. A few months later they also confiscated the small pieces of flying saucers that his son had found and gathered them in the field. More rays of light. Further illuminating this whole story are documents released by the Belgian Ministry of Defense in 1991. These are radar evidence of 2 Belgian Air Force F-16 fighters ordered to track the object, unspecified flight. Add to that the data of 4 military radars on the ground tracking alien spacecraft, as well as many statements by citizens and police. At that time the radar of the Belgian air base recorded the unidentified flying object. F-16 fighter interceptors took off. When the aircraft approached the flying object, it suddenly accelerated and quickly escaped the pursuing planes. The foreign object moves at an unprecedented speed. According to NATO General Wilfred de Brover, no pilot in the world can withstand the overload that occurs when traveling at such speed. Belgian experts from NATO believe that the object is clearly of extraterrestrial origin.